You're setting a wonderful example. So we're a small group this evening, and it would be nice if we were more intimately seated. You know what I mean? You probably don't even need the microphone. If you're all up here, we can probably do without it, but we'll talk anyway because we need the microphone for the whatever he does on. This is all technical stuff. I'm too old for that crap.
I forgot. So no one could hear you. Now they can hear you.
Now everybody can hear me. Anyway, welcome. We have a small group. That's fine, because what that can mean is that the questions will be more pertinent and they will be more clear, And more people will have an opportunity to ask questions about that which concerns them. So that's a good thing. Information first, we have to do this. It's the law. Emergency exits, one there, one there. Bathrooms are over there. I think there's one for laddies and one for laddies and one for men. I'm not sure what the ladies are going to do. I'm glad you got that. Okay, and we have 3 speakers tonight. One of them is my wife, who's just absolutely incredible at this kind of thing. She's a marvelous researcher. And of course, Chris Scott from the Whistle Stop Cafe, and I'll be a speaker as well. My one admonition to you is that when I'm speaking, and my job is to speak, and your job is to listen. If you finish before I do, would you let me know? We normally start these with a prayer. Can I have a volunteer to say a prayer? And would you like to volunteer, honey? See how I did that?
Pass that off, eh?
Yeah. Our Heavenly Father, how thankful we are to be here in this beautiful northern Alberta territory. We ask, Heavenly Father, that Thy presence might be with us, that our thoughts might be Thy thoughts, and that we will join together in a strong and consistent effort to achieve the new country of Alberta, a true democracy for our children and our grandchildren. We ask that Thou would be with our speakers tonight, that their words might come easily, and Thy principles might be presented well. We ask this in the name of Jesus Christ, our Savior. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. So the way the evening will go is that we'll have the 3 speakers, and we try to limit the speakers to about 10 minutes each. And it's not because they only have 10 minutes worth of knowledge. It's because if they spoke about everything they knew, we'd be here until next Tuesday. So what we do then is we hear from the 3 speakers, then we take a short 10-minute break, give everybody a chance to visit the washroom and have another coffee or grab a water off the back. Then we'll gather together and we'll have a question and answer period. Does that sound like a plan? Okay, so the first speaker, number 1, will be my wife, Joanne Reil. Joanne is a retired school teacher and principal, and that sounds like sort of la-di-da, big deal, but she told me I'm not supposed to laud her accomplishments, but I can't help it. I have to talk a little bit about what she's done. She was a principal here in Alberta in the Grand Yellowhead district, but we moved to Mexico for a decade and a half or so. And because she built a house down there, she was the general contractor while I was up here trying to make a living and somewhat succeeding. When she finished building the house, she had nothing else to do, so she started an Alberta school in Mazatlan. That school, she was the principal of that school, and that school was actually formed under the auspices of Alberta Education. And the kids that were to graduate from that school would graduate with a Mexican diploma and also with an Alberta provincial diploma, which opened up all sorts of opportunities to them. She also has been instrumental in the creation of an organization called the Alberta Consortium Association. No, what is that project? Alberta Assessment. And what that did was it was a way of getting to teachers and teaching them all sorts of new ways to relate to their kids and all sorts of new teaching strategies. And she was instrumental in the creation of that particular association and also wrote a book detailing what it's all about. She's a very talented lady. So if you'd welcome Joanne, she'll give you a few minutes of her time.
Thank you. Thank you, honey. Thank you, honey. Still too much, but thank you, honey. I used to be proud of being a teacher. It's kind of iffy to admit to it now. Trust me, I was not that kind of a teacher. Tonight, I'm going to talk on how democracies die. And it's kind of like the good book. I want you to try and relate what was said, what I say, to what is happening now. Just like if you read the Bible, you should try and relate that lesson to your daily work or daily being, right? So try and think about Canada and think about Alberta as we go through this. I'm not used to microphones. Yeah, I can talk louder. Is that better? Or do you want to borrow my hearing aids?
I can borrow mine.
Okay. I'm going to speak up. Is that better? Yeah. We're ready to go. Most democracies actually self-destruct from within, and then they die. So we're not that rare in what we're going through right now. Democracies have a cycle of life, kind of like all the birds and the bees do. They have a cycle of life, so do we. Not going to go through the cycle, but we're going to look a little bit at what's going on in Canada and try and figure out, gee, is that a healthy democracy? Or is that perhaps an unhealthy democracy? Where are we? Are we strong or are we fading? Let's talk over a few things that would identify these. Oh, one thing also that I wanted to say, when this demise comes, it comes very slowly, and you almost can't see it happening. Okay? So it's, what would you say? It's imperceptible unless you're really looking for it. Is Canada at the risk of a democratic decline? Let's look at the media. In a good democracy, the media is independent and also impartial. So now you ask yourself, is our media independent? And is our media impartial? And most of you are shaking your heads the right way. During the first elections of Trudeau, the media treated him with kid gloves. Do you remember that? Way back in 2015? His honeymoon phase, and there's always a honeymoon phase for every new leader, but his was extraordinarily long, lasting basically 4 years. They talked about his wonderful sunny ways. Remember that? Some people bought it. In 2020, another election occurred, federal, and it resulted in a minority government for the Liberals. Shortly after, Trudeau decides, because of COVID, remember 2020, media, all of them, needed $85 million. Now think about that for a minute. The next thing he did is he shut down schools, and he shut down businesses, unless you're a big one like Home Depot or Walmart, shut down all our family farms. And he shut down the government in the sense that they left and worked from home, most of them. Remember that? So you tell me, when has our media ever had a bigger audience at home? But he gave them $85 million at that time. It's kind of funny. Supposed to be temporary, but we still have it, and in fact, it's grown. Now, between 2020 and 2025, and now I'm getting a lisp in here, the gift to the media is up to $325 million per year. $325 million. We don't have money for our OAS, we don't have money for our veterans, but we have $325 for what's supposed to be an independent media. I got to tell you, the average Joe, and I can say that because I am Joanne, would do an awful lot for the $22 million that 100 of our media outlets get every year. $22 million. So, during the 2025 election, just almost a year ago, new man Carney decided that that money, $325 million, was not enough, and he added $150 million, just in time for the election. And if you look back at that election, you'll remember that they all thought Pierre Poilievre, I can't say that word, but you know who I mean, was going to win. I think there should be an X here. Yeah, red dot, something. The where was I? I don't know. Oh yeah, 100 media outlets each got $22 million. So he just bought 100 media outlets. You wonder why the narrative changed right before the election and everybody was convinced we absolutely had to have Carney? Money buys. They were bought and paid for. Okay, another possible risk that we're undergoing right now. PMs that end up bringing down a system are usually working the system. The very system that got them elected, they start to learn the ins and the outs, and they make it work for them. I wonder if Prime Minister Carney is doing that. I think he is. Consider the Emergency Act. Do you remember? We actually got the courts, 2 of them, to say that that was illegally implemented. But on the very day that the courts came down with their decision, what did Carney do with his government? They said, we're appealing. So now we're still waiting. People are still in custody. It's not jail, but they're now in, what do they call it? House arrest. That's what it is. House arrest. That doesn't sound kosher to me. Empire building. Under Trudeau, the civil service grew twice as fast as our population. We know our government has really gotten bigger, both provincially and federally, but it's gotten huge. What that means is this. When you see the job numbers and the jobless numbers, it's the federal government and your tax dollars that are keeping the job numbers high. It's not private industry. And that's not a healthy democracy. Not in the least. Here's the numbers for that. The government share of our resources, all the total monies that we send them, has grown from 2014-2015 to the latest data is from 23-24. From 12.8% of the resource goes to the government, the first one, and now 16.2% goes to the government. All the money that goes to government workings is taken out of services to our citizens. So that's a huge increase. How about governments that possibly usurp power that's not theirs? Here's the latest. And if you were actually recording this since Carney, or writing this since Carney got in, you could almost rewrite it every week. That's how many bills he's introduced. They're very proud of it. Montana had the right idea about this. They refused to let their government sit longer than, how long was it, honey?
It used to be 3 weeks a year.
3 weeks a year. You can't pass a lot of bills in 3 weeks. That's a good thing. The one that I'm worried about is the government passing Bill C-5, and this was done in June of a year ago, June of 25. And that was a bill that said, listen to this, it grants the federal cabinet the power to override existing laws for any project deemed by the government to be in the national interest of the country. That means all laws passed before, Carney can override. It means also that all laws implemented in the future in our parliament, it's ours, not theirs, can be overridden in the future. Do you understand what that means? That means that the cabinet, and you have to know that the cabinet is really the prime minister, because if you want to stay in cabinet, you don't vote against anything the prime minister wants. That means we're now in a position where one man or woman, in this case it's a man, can simply ignore because something is in the best interest of the country, decided by him. What does that sound like? Communism? What does it sound like? Dictator. Is our democracy healthy? It's in jeopardy. Hey, we're on page 3, guys. You're listening good. What does that mean? It means that the majority government is no longer listed. He knows we're upset because he just bought 5 members onto his party from Conservatives. They were bribed. There's no other way to put it. I get to say that as a civil servant, as a civil citizen right now. I don't know if I can say that in a few years. But there's only one way they came over. Do I have time to say a quick example? This is against our own Conservatives. When my husband was running the Alberta First Party, we were down south doing some campaigning, and one of the guys who was supposed to do a debate couldn't make it. He had to fly down to Ontario because he had a family death. And John asked me to step in for him. And so I did. And this is my first debate. And I'm winning. And it's clear that I'm winning because the other guys are saying like almost nothing. I'm thinking, what's going on here? This is not my idea of a debate. I used to judge debates in high school. I'm thinking, they're not even putting anything forward. Worse, we go through that and you get to do a 3 or 5 minute closure. I can't remember which one this one was. And I did my thing and I talked about our wonderful policies and all this, and I sat down and I thought, yeah, eat that, right? Do better than that. He stood up and he said one sentence. If you vote Conservative, we will build you a new hockey arena. There you go. Guess what they voted for? Yeah, they voted for the hockey rink. So it's not a party that's doing it. It's not a person that's doing it. It's when the people in power, our representatives, decide that they can use the system to increase their wealth or increase their power, they start to destroy the system. And that's what I see happening, me, in Canada. We've also got some other considerations. A lady named Lydia Miljan, she's a professor of political science, and she wrote her concerns. Canada has overloaded our welfare system by the following: poor policy, we increase the numbers, and we decrease the vetting. Right? That didn't help us. We're not getting what we need. They're just getting more bodies, and it's a drain on our service and our social services. Huge stimulus spending. It's been rampant with this party. I don't know how much is getting to the citizens, but there's been an awful lot of money taken out of the budget for it. We've had a big increase on the dependency of government after COVID. That's because they shut down half of our businesses who never were able to come back. So people are now depending on the government. We also have now a debt that is $1.5 trillion. I remember when my dad was sitting in a town council meeting, and I asked him, this is when I was in grade 11 or 12, how did it go, Dad? And he said, it was ridiculous. And I said, why was it ridiculous? He said, they talked for 5 minutes about buying a new grader. And I don't remember what it was, but it was fairly expensive back then. You're talking 1964 probably, maybe 5. And he said, but then they talked for a half an hour about buying something, and I don't remember that, I just remember the grader, but it was a small little item and that probably cost a few $100s. This number is really big, and that's what was happening back there. They couldn't conceive of the cost of a grader because most of us can't think of that much money. Do you know what $1.5 trillion is? Let's put it in words that we do know, because it's like almost inconceivable. That's $1,500 billion. 1,000 billion. Each billion is 1,000 million, right? It's an astronomical amount of money, and that's what our debt is. Worse than that, if you take all the taxpayers in Canada and divide them into that amount of money, that means that each one of you and your children are indebted for $46,875. When your children become adults, they are assuming that if we don't pay it off. And the chances of me paying, my husband and I, what are we at? We're at, I calculated this, we owe $92,000. That's our bill from the national debt. we're old. Chances of paying that off are slim to nil, and Slim just had a heart attack. So our kids are going to eat that. Your kids are going to eat that. In fact, we can probably say our grands are going to eat that. And it's going to keep piling on, because even though Prime Minister Carney is budgeting for X amount, he's already way past X amount, working on double X. Okay, so it's not shrinking. The inflation rate has gone up. I want to just give you an example. This is kind of cute. I just said, wonder what it was. How does my salary compare to house prices in when I first started? And I wanted to go for 64, but the nearest numbers I could find were 70. The high salary rate in 1970 was 135% increased between then and now. And the house prices were calculated as zero. In other words, that was a base in 1970. And they've risen 250% now. So salaries have gone up 135% in my lifetime. Houses have gone up 250%. That's just one example of inflation. Don't let them bamboozle you and say, yeah, you know, we're doing fine, our salaries are keeping up. No, we're not. We're not even close. And that's why our kids and grandkids are finding such a pinch trying to buy a home. Not to mention the fact that they're a ridiculous price. So, fiscally, Canada is in trouble, and we citizens are in trouble. Our children are in trouble. Even if our government wanted to change, it would be very hard to recover from all this. Even if they totally agreed with us and did everything we asked that we thought was fiscally responsible, it's almost impossible. Our government does not want to change. What they want is us to be dependent so that they can control us. They control us, hang on. They want control because our survival, I don't know what I wrote, control because our survival depends on them. Yeah, they want the control that makes it so that our survival depends on them. Once you may as well be called in bondage at that point. If you are dependent upon your government for controlling you, you don't make your own decisions. The government makes them for you. Our only way out is, guess what? Separation, independence. We got to build anew. We got to start with a very limited government. We have to start with a government that has good financial principles, but also good living principles, and has solid values that we in Alberta agree with. And it's not that kind of spending. I hope that we may have the faith and courage to gain our independence from the failing democracy that's Canada. And if we don't, we're going to end up in a dictatorship. This is a time that we want all good men and women to stand up for our country. We thought we made it through, those of you who are about my age. We didn't have a war to fight like my mom and dad. My mom went to war, my dad went to war, John's dad went to war. Collectively, almost 15 years of service that they had to do to preserve our freedoms. Yes, Canada was involved, but trust me, those three would have fought for freedom no matter where they lived. And that's what we're fighting for. God-given sovereignty over our own selves. Our agency is important to us. We get to determine our life path. And I'd like to introduce, I'm done. Question?
No, questions come later.
Thank you. I want to introduce my husband. He's former military as well. He didn't have to go to war until now. He didn't know he was going to be involved in a war that was physical, or fiscal. What is the word, honey? No, I know spiritual. But he didn't know he'd be in this financial war as well as a spiritual war, which we're in at the moment. But he signed up on the dotted line both in the Air Force and in the Army as an older gentleman in the reserves. former farmer, business owner. Oh, and he's also the former leader of the Alberta First Party. We helped to develop that, and he was voted leader. So please welcome my husband, John.
I wish I recognized who she was talking about. I'm not going to spiel a whole bunch of numbers at you. I'm really not. But I do have a couple I'd like to mention. The first one is that the deficit projected by the Carney government for this fiscal year was, I think, $32 billion. The latest version of that deficit, which is, you all know what a deficit is. You earn $100, you spend $120, you have a $20 deficit. Well, they said that we're going to have a $32 billion deficit. If you think back to Trudeau when he first was elected, he was going to have, remember Harper saying he's going to have teeny-weeny, tiny little deficits? Yeah. Well, that number has been revised to something like $62 billion now. And there's some estimates out there from financial experts that say it could hit $70 to $75 billion. So when my wife talks about how much debt we have individually as our share of Canada's national debt, wait, it's not finished. But the other thing I want to mention is that the people who oppose self-determination for Alberta, this isn't about revolution. It's not about hating Canada. I love Canada. I love Canada. I love what it was. And I get people who say to me, you know, your father fought for Canada in the Second World War. I said, no, he didn't. He fought for freedom. He didn't fight for Canada. He was over there in Holland shooting at Germans. He wasn't here shooting at people who invaded our country. He was fighting for the French, for the Dutch, for the Poles, all of the people that Germany had taken over in the Second World War. And yes, it was to prevent them from coming here, but we had two oceans between us and them. It would have been very difficult for them to be successful. So they were fighting for freedom, not for Canada. They were fighting for freedom. The other thing I'd like to mention, fiscally, is that our Premier, who I have a lot of respect for in many ways, Danielle Smith, said the other day that it would cost $400 billion in transition fees for Alberta to become independent. And any farmers here? And farmers? Anybody raise cattle? You raise cattle? Anybody here that raises cattle familiar with that which comes out of the back end of a northbound bull? That's what that is. The fact of the matter is that we already pay those fees. We send between 25 or 27 and $40 billion a year extra to the federal government that we receive nothing back for in the way of services. And just to add to that, or to example that, all of Canada is in a recession. All of Canada except Alberta. Isn't that amazing? We're the only province out of 10 that isn't in recession. Now, what I'll tell you is this. Prince Edward Island, they have an annual contribution to their budget that they get 24% of from equalization. A quarter of their annual budget comes from equalization. How about New Brunswick? 22% of their budget comes from equalization. How about Nova Scotia? 21% of their budget comes from equalization. And Manitoba, one of our brother or sister provinces in the West, gets 19% of their budget from equalization. And Quebec only gets 8.4%. Those poor Quebecers, they only get 8.4%. But the difference is that 8.4% represents between $13 and $15 billion a year. Where does that come from? It comes from our pockets. And people will say, well, that comes from taxes and everybody pays the same rate of taxes, so therefore you shouldn't be complaining. Well, how about if you reduce the taxes and let us keep our money in our pocket, and let's let the maritime provinces in Quebec stand on their own 2 feet? They can do it. If they had to, they would. I used an example the other day. You might have heard this if you heard my talk last night online. If you have a wonderful home and your kids have left the home and you're just loving each other, and the fact that you're an empty nester now and you got time together and you can dance in the kitchen and nobody giggles at you, and your brother-in-law comes to you and says, my wife left me. They repossessed my house. I've lost my job. Can I come and stay in your basement suite for a little while till I get back on my feet? Sure, your family will let you do that. Anyone here would do that, wouldn't they? I know you would. And he did that in 1987. And in 1995, you went to get breakfast out of the fridge and there was no bacon and no eggs because your brother-in-law had a midnight snack and he's been there ever since 1987. What are you going to do with your brother-in-law? Which boot are you going to use to kick him out? So my suggestion is that what we need to do, as far as I'm concerned, I love Canada. I love the idea of Canada. I served in the RCAF and I served in the Canadian Army Signals Corps. I love Canada. I want them to be happy, healthy, and prosperous. And the best way for them to be happy, healthy, and prosperous is for them to realize they need to stand on their own 2 feet, develop the resources such as the millions of cubic feet of natural gas that Quebec has under its surface, and the millions of barrels of oil, shale oil they have that they only need to frack for, that's there, instead of sucking at the Alberta's teat. Develop your own resources, okay? And that would save Canada. So what I'm framing this as, if you think about it, is Alberta separation is good for Canada. Now let's look at the other side of the coin. We have billions of dollars that we send to Ottawa each year, over and above that which comes back in services. Canada's in a recession. Alberta is not. Recession means they need more money. Canada's credit rating is AA. So the reason Canada's credit rating is AA, it's as good as it is because of the inputs that Canada gets from places like Alberta and Saskatchewan and to some degree British Columbia. If Alberta goes, the inputs go down, and what happens to Canada's credit rating? Goes into the tank. They would be forced to actually do something productive. So that's my spiel on finances, okay? The fact is that we need the rest of Canada to look after themselves. We are a wonderful and charitable people in Alberta. We look after our families, we look after our neighbors. If you have a farmer that breaks a leg and he needs his crop taken off, you do it for him. If somebody is sick, mom takes over a week's worth of meals and dad takes over some chores. That's what you do. That's what Albertans do and always have. In the East, they say, well, the government will do it for me. No, we do it. We are a proud, hardworking, industrious people, and we need the East, particularly the people in the Laurentian area of central Canada, to recognize that that's what we are. We are different from them. We are not the same. So we need our own country. Now, let me talk for just a couple of minutes. I don't want to go on too long because I do not want to take time away from Chris and the Q&A. That's right, because he has so much of value to share with us. But I will give you this. If we were independent, you know that we would have more land than almost 80%, 79-point-something% of the other countries in the world. That's how large we would be. Jason Kenney tried to minimize us by calling us a potential statelet. We're larger than 8/10 of the countries in the world. Okay? We'd have more land than 80% of other nations. We'd have a larger GDP than 80% of the other nations. That's as we are now without even developing our resources properly. And we'd have more farmland than 91% of the other nations of the world. We would be so prosperous that we would be the envy of the rest of the world, and we'd be the masters of our own destiny. That's what we could be, and that's what I hope that we will be. Now let's talk about country. What is a country? What is it that you want? What is it that I want? We want a country that is formed by people who have similar ethics and values. We want a country that believes in faith, family, and freedom. Whatever that faith might be. It may be faith in your Father in heaven. It might be faith in your neighbors. It might be faith in your society and in the collective group that you have because of your ethics and your personal work ethic. But we need that faith. We need family. We need to take care of our family. And our family is much wider than many people think. We have family all over the place. We came back from Mexico to live in Ponoka, and we found some family there. My wife found a cousin who's just had his 96th birthday. He's a great guy. He and I play pool twice a week. He's family. And every week, one of us drives to Wetaskiwin to pick her up from her appointment where she goes through, what's it called, dialysis, 3 times a week. She's family. We help. So we need similar values. We need to share common ethics and values, and we need to live within a defined region. We have borders. And we need to be willing to defend and hold those borders. So we need to be courageous. We have to be courageous, because if we're not courageous, we can't do those things. And let me tell you what courage is, in my opinion. Courage is being scared to death and doing it anyway. And there's enough people in this room who are a little older than some of the others who've recognized the need to exercise that courage throughout their life, whether it be faced with financial problems, business problems, family problems, death, dismemberment, all of those things that happen to us as we journey through this our time on earth. We need courage for that. We need to be able to do things that are difficult and frightening and scary. We need to be able to do them anyway. National interest. These are the things we have to develop for Alberta. We need unity. Unity doesn't mean we're all the same. What it means is that we have a common purpose, and that common purpose is to safeguard the future of our children, our grandchildren, and all of our progeny, their children too. We need to leave them in a position where they can become prosperous and happy. We don't have to all believe the same things. We just all have to have the same goal. We need national security, so we're going to need some sort of border control. We're going to need a military of some kind. And I got to tell you, when I joined the Air Force in 1965, there was 116,000 people in the Air Force. There's now 70,000 in all 3. We need a military. And you'd be surprised at the number of Westerners, Albertans and Saskatchewanians, who are in the military. They actually form the bulk of the military, believe it or not. And they'd come home in the event that we had a successful referendum and became independent. We need to have rights and freedoms. And the rights that we have are not the rights the government gives us. They don't own those rights. You do. You have those rights for one of 2 reasons: because you're a child of God and they're God-given rights, or because you're a human if you don't believe in God. The very fact that you are a human being means that you have those rights, and they can't be taken away from you. And that's the kind of society we need. Freedom. We need to be able to do what we want to do and need to do. I talked to the old leader of the Alberta Social Credit Party one day about 30 years ago, and he talked about swinging his arms. You have absolute freedom. You can swing your arm as much as you want, but your freedom to swing your arm ends at the point his nose begins. So you should be able to do whatever the heck you want, as long as you're not hurting somebody else. We need economic prosperity and growth. That will come. We have all the resources. We have the human resources. We have the physical resources. It will come. We need personal and community well-being. In other words, we need to look after each other. Whoever thought that it was a good idea to put the government in charge of charity? I mean, give me a break. To start with, there's a whole bunch of money on that charitable fund that's taken off the top to pay for the 11,000 extra people that the government hires to look after it. We are a community. We look after each other. There was a proposal a short while ago that said that they were looking at removing the exempt charitable status of churches. They actually did a study and found out that if they removed the charitable status of churches and the government took over what the churches were doing, it would cost them so much money they'd have to raise our taxes. So they didn't do it. We need to have good governance. Now, I've got a lot of stuff on governance, and hopefully during the Q&A I'll get a chance to talk about some of it with you. But the fact is, we do not have good governance. When you elect a politician, does anybody here know what the first objective a politician has? He tells you what he wants to do. He tells you he's going to look after you, represent you. You're going to get all of those things that you're complaining about, and you elect him, and he goes to the legislature. What's his first job? What's his very first job? Well, that's part of it. Anything else? To get reelected. That's the very first job, and it's the continuing job that he or she has throughout their entire term. We need to get rid of politicians and elect statesmen. We need people who are concerned with their community, with their people, and with the well-being of their nation. And that's the kind of people we need to elect. So I'm here to tell you this. I'm getting on a little bit. I mean, there's people in here who are older than we are, but I'm knocking on the door of 80. Another year and a half or so, I'll be 80 years old. And I'm doing this because I believe in my heart that it's the right thing to do. And it's not easy. I've been really abused by some people, at least not physically yet, but it's not easy. It won't be easy for you either. But I'm looking at you, and I see in your eyes a determination to do the right thing. The right thing is to protect your family, your community, and in this instance, the future of your children. And the best way to protect that future is to make Alberta an independent country. Our relationship with Canada will be wonderful. They still need our oil, they still need our cattle, they still need our grain, they still need our minerals, as does the U.S. and other parts of the world. They cannot just say, to heck with you, we're not dealing with you anymore, because that would really hurt them. The only difference would be is that we would look after our own country, make our own decisions, and make them for the benefit of our own citizens. And we would not be governed by somebody who's 3,000 miles away and more concerned with what he's going to have for lunch than what Albertans want from the government. I know you can do it. You look like people who have courage. You look like people who are willing to do things that are difficult. I think you are, and I pray you are, and I thank you very much. Now, our next speaker, we want to talk about after our next speaker. We're going to take a 10-minute break while you go and visit the little boy's room or the little girl's room and have a cup of coffee. And then we're going to have a Q&A. And we really hope that we have some good questions, some challenging questions, some things that make us think and you think. And whether you're for or against independence is not important. What's important is that you ask and that we discuss. Now, we have Chris Scott coming up. This is a man that I've learned to respect over the last year or so very, very much. He's a man of character. He's a man of courage. He has done things like go to jail for his beliefs, for having a, would you believe, a protest on his own property. They threw him in jail on his own property. What a wonderful thing to do. What a wonderful country we live in. But he's extremely knowledgeable. He's really, really pretty good at talking. But what I want you to do is forget the fact that he's good at talking and listen to what he has to say, because it's important. Chris?
Oh, me?
Yeah, I think it's you. No skipping on the way up. No dancing. No dancing.
You said good at talking. I was waiting for someone else to come in. Thanks, John. Well, thank you very much, and thank you all for coming. I just want to point out that, yes, the crowds are getting smaller. Did you know that? Do you want to know why? Because we live in probably one of the most beautiful places on the planet. This trip that we've done from Mirror to Slave Lake to La Crete to Peace River and tomorrow to Valley View is probably one of the most beautiful drives you can do in Alberta in the summer. I mean, it's nice in the winter, but summer is nothing like it. I would actually rather be enjoying Alberta nature, camping, fishing, doing those sorts of things. As a matter of fact, Jessica and I stopped at Walmart in Slave Lake and we picked up a couple fishing rods. I thought, oh yeah, well for sure, in all this traveling, we'll find some time to throw a line in the water, and even if we don't catch anything, just to do a little fishing. Still hasn't happened. The tags are still on the rods. But I say that just so that you know, I would rather be doing that. And most people in Alberta, especially by now, after going through the last, 6 years, they're kind of exhausted with politics. They're exhausted with all of the manipulation they have faced at the hands of politicians and groups and each other. and they're doing what we are actually born to do, which is enjoy our lives, right? So wherever you're at, watching at home, or if you're here or going to be at Valley View tomorrow, it's important to understand that the size of the crowds at events like this is not representative of what the feeling is in Alberta. I travel all over the place. We have conversations all over the place, kind of where we're at. We always wear beautiful Alberta-themed merch like Jessica's selling at the back there that's quite terribly overpriced, but it's great conversation starters. So we would appreciate it if you would buy everything so we don't have to pack it up. And we constantly get people coming up and saying, hey, nice shirt, and they strike up a conversation. They share something about their frustrations they're experiencing as an Albertan or a Western Canadian. And really, you know, it's very rare that we meet somebody who is staunchly opposed to my personal opinion. And my personal opinion is that Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable. That's my opinion. You may not share the same one. That's why we're here. Regardless of which side of that conversation you're on, Alberta is going to be, Albertans will be asked a question on Alberta sovereignty in October. Not a direct, you know, constitutionally valid question that's going to trigger a series of things that make an independent nation of Alberta, but it's a question that asks us, do we want to continue with the status quo, or do we want something different? That's the question. And the something different is, do we want the government to begin the process of asking for another process to start a process for whether or not they want to form a process that's constitutionally valid according to the Clarity Act that may trigger another process that gets us closer to a vote on independence or something like that. It's not going to be that complicated. I'm sorry. I got to make fun of it because it's still a little funny to me. So we're going to be asked the question regardless of what side of the conversation we're on. And I've kind of come to terms with the fact that it's not necessarily my job anymore to try and convince people which way to vote. No, I think there's something more important here. I want to highlight and point out the significance of the question that's going to be offered to us. Did you ever in your life think that as an Albertan you might be asked a question on Alberta sovereignty? I didn't. And yet here we are. It's an opportunity that other people in other places have made huge sacrifices to get. Fought, died, sent their sons and daughters off, never had them come home, all for the opportunity to choose whether they want to self-determine, whether they want the status quo or something different. And because of the significance of the question, I know that we have an obligation to do everything we can to make sure that we talk about these things amongst ourselves, amongst each other, Albertans. I'm not as worried about what people from BC or Ontario think. This is a question for Albertans. We also have a moral obligation to understand the question. What does it mean? What are the consequences? What are the potential benefits? We need the facts, because our answer is going to shape Alberta for generations. And I say this kind of jokingly, but it is true that many of us in this room, we won't truly feel either the benefit of what I believe what the benefits of an independent Alberta may be, or what the consequences of the status quo will be. We probably won't feel that, but our kids are going to. And that means that we have to do what we always do, and we have to make sacrifices for our kids, for the next generation. One of those sacrifices that we have to make is we have to start learning. We have to start talking. We have to shed this idea that talking about politics or independence is impolite. Have you ever been told, oh, it's impolite to talk about religion or politics at the dinner table? The two most important things in our lives. One governs your life from before you're born till after you're dead, and the next one governs your entire life into eternity. These are two important conversations that we need to have. And we need to start speaking openly and honestly about our opinions on them. That's how we get to the best conclusion, the best outcome. That's how we built things like, that's how they built things like Alberta. Imagine, 1936, this year is the 90th anniversary of the founding of the town of Lacrete. And if you drive through northern Alberta, it's a long road of nothing. Like there's muskeg on the left, there's muskeg on the right, and then there's muskeg on the left, and there's some forest fire burnt trees, and then there's muskeg and green trees on the right. And it's like that for like 300K. And if you think, like, people came here, in Lacrete's case, on a barge in 1936 with nothing, no power tools, no electricity, none of the comforts that we have, no oil and gas, no nothing. They literally lit their lamps with whale blubber, 1936. And they built what Lacrete is now in those harsh conditions. Winters minus 50 sometimes. Summers approaching plus 40. Like, it's absolute lunacy to think that people with such primitive tools could do that. But you know what they did? They got together and they did it. They had a mission and a vision. They wanted to build something for themselves and their family and future generations, and they did it. They didn't rely on other people to come in and save them from the problems they were experiencing. They just did it. And since then, a lot of the, I'd say, if not all, of the political changes or revolutionary ideas, things like that, they don't start in a boardroom in Calgary or Edmonton. They start in a coffee shop in Peace River, where regular people are sitting around a coffee table sharing their opinions, their frustrations, their dreams, their hopes. And sometimes one farmer will say to the next, hey, I want to do this. And the other farmer says, you're freaking crazy. You can't do that. And then they talk about it. And sometimes we realize, hey, that's not such a crazy idea. And then we change the world. Well, that's where Alberta is right now. Some people look at me and they think that I'm complete lunatic because I want Alberta to be an independent sovereign nation. And sometimes they'll even talk to me about it. And I might not change their mind, but we had the conversation, and by the time we part, maybe I'm not so crazy. You know, maybe some of my ideas and my opinions they resonate with them as well. Because at the end of the day, we kind of want very similar things as human beings. We want security, safety, prosperity, and we want to spend time with our families. And jet boats and quads and side-by-sides and helicopters and all those types of things. But we kind of want the same things. We just have a different idea on how we're going to get there. Some people who don't share my opinions may say, hey, yeah, I want those things for my family as well, Chris. That's why I'm going to support a government that passes legislation that may end up having you fined or jailed for speaking your faith. Or I'm going to support legislation that will allow the government to turn off your internet if they deem you a threat. That's why I'm going to support legislation that will fund the media to make sure that they never bite the hand that feeds them. That's why I'm going to support a government that uses Alberta as the sacrificial lamb in a trade dispute while never suffering the consequences of that decision. And then I say, okay, who sounds like a lunatic now? But if somebody has an idea on how they achieve prosperity and it's that different than what we believe, we have to talk about it. And I don't know if you've noticed, but those who do not share my opinion on Alberta independence, they're allowed to speak freely wherever they want. They can book venues wherever they want. They don't get canceled. They don't get shamed. They don't get shut down. When you support the status quo, that's comfortable. It's easier. You can use fear on your side, and it's kind of societally accepted. But when you want to change the status quo, you have people swerving at you with their cars. They put cigarette butts, lit cigarettes in your cheek. They swear and spit at you. They call you a traitor. They call you a seditionist. They call you all sorts of things. In what world is it ever constructive to shut down conversations before they even start? To my forever Canadian friends, I would ask, if you believe so strongly in your position that the status quo is best for Albertans and Alberta, why aren't you here trying to change my mind? I'm going to be at another 150 events across Alberta, speaking to people just like you, answering their questions, letting them challenge my ideas and opinions. Not so that I can tell them what to do, but so that we have an open conversation. And I would think that it would be important to people that disagree with me to come challenge me. I would love for that to happen. And on the other hand, you know what? If people are going to gather to talk about why the status quo is best, why wouldn't they want other people who don't share their opinions to come and listen and challenge them on the ideas? Because what if they're wrong? What if I'm wrong? This is a really important decision and a really important conversation. And the consequences are dire or amazing. I think it's important to talk about. That's what Let's Talk Alberta is about. It's not a rally for Alberta independence. It's not a rah, rah, rah for vote this way. It's a, hey, I have this opinion, and Let's Talk Alberta is going to facilitate an afternoon or an evening where we can talk about this opinion. Because I want to make sure that I make the best decision in October as well. I want the best for Alberta. I want the best for Albertans. I want the best for my family. And actually, if you zoom out a little bit, I want the best for Canada. And my personal opinion is that the best thing for Canada is for Alberta to stand up and be leaders and say, no, we're not going down that path with you, Mr. Carney, to the New World Order. That's not where our values lie. You do not share our principles, and we don't want to go. And by doing so, Alberta kind of becomes the crazy burger flipper in Mirror, Alberta, who stands up against a government who's going down a path that he believes is the wrong path. And when you do that, you're alone for a few minutes, and then all of a sudden, all these other people who shared your frustrations and shared your opinions, they rally around you because somebody needed to stand up against what was happening. That's what Alberta is. That's who Albertans are. I believe that Albertans are the last hope to prevent Canada from continuing on the course they're on. One of the questions that I ask is, that's not a question really, it's a, yeah, there's a question, but we have to role play for a second. I want you to put yourself in your own shoes, but 30 years ago. Some of us can't remember back that far. I was 16 years old. And I want you to just get in that headspace of your 30-year younger self. And imagine somebody came to you and they said to you, hey, 30 years from now, the government is going to close down businesses and destroy people's lives, destroy their livelihoods because people get sick or there's a sickness. Would you believe it? I wouldn't. If your 30-year younger self was asked or was told, hey, 30 years from now, the government's actually going to send police into churches to try and shut it down. And when the pastor refuses, when the pastor shepherds his flock as he's commanded to, they're going to catch him on the highway and drag him down the highway and put him in jail, and they're going to let him rot in jail for 4 or 5 weeks. Would you believe that? 30 years ago, if somebody told you that the government was going to print twice as much money and spend like buffoons, devaluing the dollar by almost 50% and plunging Canada into a recession that was completely unnecessary, would you believe it? Yeah, I would believe that one. Now, let's get back into our older minds. If I told you that 20 years from now, this country, and by default, Alberta, was going to be in a much, much worse situation, would you believe that? Yes. It is my opinion, and many people share this opinion, that if we don't change the status quo, we will continue on a path that's declining and things won't get better. Would you agree with that statement? I'll tell you a secret. Many of the people that are opposed to the idea of an independent Alberta share that sentiment. They also don't see positive changes happening. They also would say, I don't think things will be better in 20 years. The only difference between you and them and us and them is their idea of what the solution is. So when I say we're kind of all the same, we really are. It's just the solutions that are different. Man, I miss 30 years ago. 30 years ago, I lived in Campbell River, BC. I was actually born there. And then I moved to Kamloops when I was 1. I used to say I grew up in Kamloops, and then I realized I didn't actually grow up. So I say I was raised in Kamloops. And then we moved back to Campbell River when I was 14, I think. And I lived there until 2000. In 2000, I woke up one morning, totally sick and tired of $7 an hour, fighting for a $7 an hour job in Campbell River back then, by the way, on our second successive NDP government that was not doing good things for us. I was watching industry fail and close around me, and it was not their prosperity wasn't in the cards. And I had a friend working in Alberta. He went to work in the rigs. And every time he came home, he had a new leather couch or a DVD player and 100 DVDs or something. All of the things rich people had back then. And I was like, you know what? I want to prosper. I want the opportunity to work hard and earn lots of money. So I got out of bed. I phoned the airline, because back then I don't even think we did it online. And I booked a $99 WestJet flight from Campbell River to Edmonton. I got off the plane in Edmonton at 7 a.m. and I took a cab to Leduc Safety Center in Nisku, and I did my H2S. And then the next day I did my first aid or something like that. I can't remember exactly how it went. And then I went to work for a temp agency. I ended up at Layfield Plastics in Edmonton for 2 weeks, or 10 days, I think, and then off to Red Earth for my first rig job. And I never looked back. And I want that opportunity for other kids. I want them to know that there's a place they can go and they can just show up and work hard and they'll prosper. I don't want that to disappear. And I think Alberta could be that again if we change some things, but only if we change some things. The changes that we need are going to require some courage. And this is where I have concerns. We need the courage to change. And if we can't muster that courage and do what needs to be done, if we can't get up one morning and decide, you know what, I don't know exactly how it's going to go, but I'm going to get on that airplane. I'm going to fly to Edmonton. I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm going to get there, but I'm going to go for prosperity. If we don't do that, we don't deserve the reward. And this is something that we have suffered with in politics in Canada, not just Alberta, since I was paying attention in the mid-90s. I watched it happen with the Reform Party. I didn't understand what happened back then. But now I realized people were made to be fearful. The Reform Party came from almost nowhere, and it was a revival of Western, what's the word for it? Western representation, Western ideas. The West wanted in, and the West was doing it. And then we heard this notion that, hey, if we don't unify, the alternative is so bad, we just need to sacrifice this idea. You want a Triple E Senate? Well, no, we can't do that, but we can protect you from the other bad political party. Canada was manipulated into abandoning the principles and values that made the Reform Party what it was, and they were convinced to become the CPC. Fast forward to Alberta, the Wild Rose, the official opposition, making very good headway, pushing for Alberta sovereignty, changing what Alberta looked like, even as the official opposition, even with just that pressure. would have probably been a government. And then something happened that we just don't talk about anymore that almost destroyed that party, that put Alberta back in its place. Well, Alberta's been getting put in its place for years. Some folks in here remember the National Energy Program, 1982 or 1980. What it did to Alberta. Alberta was becoming the economic engine of Canada. And the federal minister of finance at the time was busted saying, we cannot allow Alberta to become the economic engine of Canada. We need to do something. And this is it. Well, it worked. We're put in our place and there's nothing we could do about it. Just recently, we were convinced that if we didn't unify against the NDP, led by the real-life boogeyman now, get it? That things are going to be so bad. And we did it. Wildrose is gone. Internal party conflict ever since. None of the sovereign Alberta things have been done. And we're just told, manipulated into just being fearful of another political party. So we don't make the changes necessary. We don't have the courage to make the changes necessary to achieve our goals. Now we're going into this question. And I almost guarantee you, when Alberta speaks and we say that we want something different than the status quo, we're going to be told, well, you know, that's great that you did this, roo-ha-ha, great for you, but we need to focus on the election. Just set your principles and values aside and just make sure that we don't have an NDP government. You have to be so fearful of that we need you to set aside what you really want. That's what concerns me. And so we have an election in 2027, and we have to decide between now and then, are we going to be courageous and actually pursue what we want for Alberta? Or are we going to continue to capitulate to fear so much that nothing gets done?
Are you suggesting we run an independence party?
Questions after, sir. My point is, there's a lot of things to talk about. Whether it's the idea of Alberta sovereignty or the idea of Alberta governance, we got to start talking openly and honestly with each other about these things. And we have to get rid of this idea that it's impolite, and we have to cast off the shackles of fear that have paralyzed Albertans from continuing to beg for the scraps of Confederation for 121 years. If we can do those things, we'll change the world. If we can have these conversations at coffee shops all over Alberta, we'll make some headway. But we have to talk about it first. So, we have a question already. I'm going to wrap this up. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back and we'll answer all of your questions. And I'll answer them as openly and honestly as I can. Oh, Joanne tells me about the thing. My least favorite part of this, it costs money to do this. We're grassroots funded. We don't get checks from Vladimir Putin. We don't get checks from Donald Trump. We don't get checks from anybody. Well, actually, sometimes you guys write us checks, which is great. Thank you for that very much. So if you can put something in the box, please do. If you can't or you don't feel inclined to, then don't do it. And same for you at home, folks. If you like what we're doing and you want to support this work, please consider donating to Let's Talk Alberta, either in person at an event like this where we pressure you with peer pressure into putting something in because the person sitting beside you did, or by sending an e-transfer to letstalkalberta.com or letstalkalberta@gmail.com, or using the donate button at letstalkalberta.com. Those are the ways that you can support us. I do have a little bit of a teaser for you. We're about to do something. We are about to build the biggest conversation piece on Alberta's future, not just Alberta sovereignty or independence, but about Albertan things that Alberta's seen yet. You are about to see something all over Alberta that will make everybody ask questions and want to join this conversation. And when you support us financially like this, you're helping us get closer to that. I'm really, really excited to get this done, and I hope we can get it done in a very quick timeline. And maybe I'll tell you a little bit more in the Q&A, but for now we'll leave it. Anyway, we'll give you a 10-minute break. There's coffee there. There is water at the back, and we'll meet back 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
We want to hear them. Well, you know what? You don't want to talk about it? Well, if you don't want to talk about it, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's talk about it.
Not me. I'm not scared of it, but a lot of people, no, it's never going to happen.
You know what? Those kind of people are naysayers, and we don't have much use for them. But we're supposed to say again. Well, yeah, but we haven't started yet because we're waiting for the main speakers. There's one of them, and the other one's up back there playing with his camera.
Do we want to move this table forward a bit?
Yeah. No, we don't have to.
I think we should.
Oh, now you're going to spill it.
Now what's going to happen is that he's going to say it's out of focus and he has to adjust his camera again, right? That's right. Yeah, that's what I thought. So have you thought about what you want to talk about? I see a hand over there. I will go over and get this gentleman's question while Chris sits down and becomes the be-all and end-all of the evening. I'm coming on. Yes, sir.
Okay, almost more of a statement than a question. I have a Bible in my car, and I usually read one certain section to people out of it. And it's where Jesus says, "He who hath no sword, let him sell his garment and buy one." So Jesus says we need a sword. Why? To protect ourselves, our family, and our property. Our federal government is taking our swords away from us in the form of our firearms. So this is one reason why we need to get away from them. That's one reason, all right? That's Bill C-5, which they have crammed down our throats. And it's something that just, my blood pressure goes up every time I think of it. And I'm sure most of the people here are Christians. Our faith is being not eroded, but beat up by our federal government. And the reason why, if you get out the book called The Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx, one of the steps towards communism is taking away the people's faith. One of the other steps is taking away their ability to defend themselves. This is why we have to get away from, excuse me, but our Marxist government in the federal offices.
Well said. Anybody have any comments on that?
Yeah, there's another thing that we can use to defend ourselves, and sometimes we can use it as an offense as well, and that's our words, the things we say. Apparently.
That's still working.
No, the batteries are dead. Do you mind grabbing some batteries out of the thing back there for me, Jess?
Is John not sitting down?
So anyway, what I was saying is one of the things we can use to defend ourselves is our words. If we educate ourselves on these things and we know the facts, when we're presented with people who are, want to have the conversation, we can defend our position. The physical defense thing, is important, but our words can keep us from ever going down that path, right? So first, learn as much as you can, be able to have the conversations, and defend your position and your opinions, and that will hopefully be all we need.
There are some really handy handouts right as you enter, and they will help you do that. They'll pretty much most of the main questions asked are answered on there. And I think it's a good idea just to read it a couple times so you've got it to memory.
I'm going to quickly read something that's on the live stream. So this comment is from Andy. Andy does not share my opinion, but he watches and he comments, and I appreciate it. So he says, Chris, one thought before I head out for the night. I honestly think there's a bigger opportunity here than just separation itself. The energy, frustration, and engagement I'm seeing could also be used to bring more Albertans into real conversations about governance, decentralization, accountability, and practical solutions at the community level, not just one constitutional outcome. To me, that broader conversation may actually be the most valuable part of this. Good night, all. I agree with him. I agree. Those are all things that we need to focus on. Where we disagree is how to get there. I just don't believe, and feel free to change my mind, that Alberta and Albertans can achieve the outcome they want while remaining part of Confederation. There are many reasons for that. The biggest one is that if we can't influence the outcome of an election and therefore influence the legislation that we live under, that's a problem. We can fight and try and pick the crumbs of Confederation as much as we want, but why would we want to continue battling like that all the time? Like, wouldn't it be, in my opinion, it would be better just to agree to disagree and self-govern, right? So all those things that he says about decentralization, accountability, practical solutions, I 100% agree with that, and that's why I'm a strong advocate for getting involved. Like, get involved at the community level, know what a CA is, know how to participate, learn about the political process, become an expert in civics, because civics has a very strong interest in you, and then participate. It's all important. I just take it that one step further.
I have developed a very unusual for me, a very great respect for Quebec. They have read the Constitution. They didn't sign it. They're not participants in our confederation in recognizing and signing the Constitution. But what they do is they read the Constitution, they determine what the rights of the provinces are, and they just take them. They just do what the Constitution says they're entitled to do, and they essentially tell the federal government to go pound sand. An interesting thing, one of the people that travels with Chris on a regular basis is Ben Trudeau. Oh, he wrote a great book. But he pointed out to me that when Carney, when the Liberals created the Clarity Act and passed it, the day after the Liberals passed the Clarity Act, the legislature in Quebec, in their National Assembly, passed a law that said that they were going to ignore it. So what we don't have in Alberta is we don't have people at the helm of our government who are willing to do the same thing that the government of Quebec has done, which is to actually take control of the responsibilities that are ours under the Constitution. And the best example of that recently is the fact that in order to get a new pipeline, our premier had to agree with billions of dollars worth of carbon capture that we pay for, that's going to increase the cost of our oil by $5 to $15 a barrel when we export it. We don't need to do that. We can tell them to go pound sand and just do what we are entitled to do under the Constitution if they would do it. We don't need the federal government's permission to have an Alberta pension plan. We don't need their permission to have an Alberta police force. We don't need their permission to have a referendum. She could do that if she wanted to. What we need is a government that has some intestinal fortitude.
I love talking about Quebec now because they absolutely fascinate me. What John describes is just the tip of the iceberg with Quebec. How many people here would be happy if Alberta was fully sovereign and autonomous within Confederation? I'm one of those people, by the way. For me, independence is a tool to achieve sovereignty. I'm a sovereigntist. I want Alberta to be sovereign. I just believe that the only way to do that is external to Confederation. Changed my mind. Now,
Can I change your mind?
you can try. If Alberta was going to be sovereign, say we had a premier that said, we want a sovereign Alberta with a united Canada. Let's just imagine that. Wait a minute. Did that happen?
I think so.
Okay, so that happened. So our premier wants a sovereign Alberta with a united Canada. So do I. So let's do it. Quebec lives that. They act sovereign. They don't just work within the Constitution. Quebec has a language law that is unconstitutional. Did you know that? It's been struck down by the Supreme Court 4 times. they're in court for the 5th time in the Supreme Court arguing about their language law. It's unconstitutional. They don't care. It's their law. That's what sovereignty is. And so they keep going back to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court strikes it down. The Quebec legislature changes a word or a paragraph. They redo the bill, and then they go back to court. They don't care. The Quebec government voted unanimously, not just the government, the legislature voted unanimously to reject the monarchy. And then they sent a courier, not some dignitary or diplomat or the lieutenant governor or whatever. They sent a courier with a letter and gave it to King Charles when he was here, when Carney asked him to come and talk to Canada. And the letter said, "We reject the monarchy. You're not our king. We're sovereign. Thank you very much. Bonjour."
And don't come here.
And don't come here. I'm not kidding you. They did that. They voted to remove the lieutenant governor. They say, we're not using them to send our laws for royal assent, which, by the way, is unconstitutional in itself. The Constitution demands that our laws are enacted in our legislature, not debated and then sent for royal assent. Our laws demand that they're enacted in our legislature, and we still send it to the king. Anyway, Quebec said, we're not doing that anymore. And then they took a for sale sign and they put it on the lieutenant governor's lawn and said, if you want that, Canada, you pay for it. That is sovereignty. They collect their own taxes. They manage their own pension. Their financial institution, Desjardins, has so much money, and by the way, 90% of Quebecers bank with that bank. They have so much in reserve, if they wanted to launch a Quebec dollar tomorrow, they could do it. Their reserve exceeds their GDP. This is what sovereignty is. This is why I'm frustrated with our current government, saying we want Alberta sovereignty and then not doing any of them. As a matter of fact, doing things that reduce our sovereignty. Putting a referendum question in the way of our pension plan, that is not sovereignty. Saying there's no appetite for us to collect our own taxes, that is not sovereignty. That's like the Achilles heel of sovereignty. If you don't collect your own taxes, if Ottawa collects our taxes on our behalf, just so everyone's aware, Alberta collects corporate taxes, but the federal government collects provincial and federal personal income tax. How can we say, go ahead and take us to the Supreme Court and we'll just battle it out there, when the government's just going to say, and they've done this by the way, we're going to withhold these transfers if you don't do what we say. Do you remember when Trudeau said to Daniel Smith, we're going to give you $1.5 billion for some health thing, but only if you give us your Albertan people's health information in a digital format. We want all the health information of all of the people in Alberta, then we'll give you this money. They do that. So if you're going to tell me that you are going to make Alberta sovereign and then not do any of those things, and as a matter of fact, make us less sovereign, I just have a problem with that. So the concept of Quebec and their sovereignty is the model that Alberta should be using. And I'll tell you right now, there are people like Ben Trudeau who have offered to go and sit with government and say, these are the things you need to do. He's lived it his whole life. He's been in politics since he was like 4 years old, being dragged along with his dad and talking to Pierre Elliott Trudeau. This is what we need to do. And the phone never rings. And instead, our government's doing things that are opposite of that. It's really frustrating. So all that to say, yes, Quebec is great at talking about sovereignty and living it, and Alberta should be, if we want a sovereign Alberta with the United Canada, we should be looking to Quebec for guidance.
No, that's one of the comments. They want.
Yeah. So what she's saying is Quebec isn't even satisfied with that. They want full sovereignty.
Yeah, and I want to put a codicil on that as well.
I don't know what that word means.
I'm going to put an extra paragraph on that, and you don't have to agree with me. I would have agreed with this 10 years ago, and I agree with us doing what Quebec has done right now. But we're not in the same situation as we were 10 years ago. When you get a new prime minister who puts into the clerk of the Privy Council position, a very strong WEF member. And when you get a prime minister who puts into the Governor General's position a woman who is also a very strong and somewhat famous WEF member, we're no longer safe. So our decision is not to go independent or stay in Canada at this point. Our decision is go independent or be run by the WEF. And I think that changes the colors. I still want, while we're waiting for this to flow, our Premier to do exactly what Quebec has done, because we're better for it. And even if we go independent, we're still better for it. We won't have a chance to do all that under WEF.
That's a great comment. I just got to read this from Andy, John. Sorry to budge in here. So Andy says, Quebec built sovereignty, decades of work. Alberta could do the same thing and get the same results, maybe better. That's been the point all along. And if Alberta is sovereign like Quebec, leaving Canada makes even less sense. That I disagree with, and I'll explain why. Do the work, show it can be sovereign, then separate if you want to. Follow the rules, and the pot of gold awaits. Thanks for discussing my comment. It was a pleasure and a privilege to be able to do so, Andy. Thank you for the comment. I agree again. I would love for Alberta to do what Quebec did. What did Quebec do in 1995?
1995? Oh, they voted for...
They held a referendum on the question of Quebec sovereignty. Alberta has a referendum on the question of Alberta sovereignty in October. If you agree with those who say, I want a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada, it is my opinion that the best way to facilitate that outcome is by having a strong show of support for Alberta sovereignty in any referendum. It's important to note that if Alberta votes for sovereignty in any referendum, that doesn't automatically make Alberta a nation. That triggers negotiations with the federal government. Therefore, if you are a united Alberta or a sovereign Alberta with a united Canada supporter, you share my opinion that Alberta needs a successful referendum on independence. Isn't that interesting?
It's a no-brainer. If you want sovereign Alberta within the United Canada, you have to vote yes to wanting change. You had a question, sir.
Yeah, that's kind of a statement, actually. Daniel Smith there said it was going to cost $400 billion or some darn thing like that to make this into a sovereign country, eh? Or a province, eh? What is it going to cost the people of Alberta to doggone stay in Canada with their rules? That's what I was wondering.
Excellent question.
That's a great question. The comment was, Daniel Smith says that it may cost Alberta $400 billion to become independent. And his question is, what is it going to cost Albertans if we don't? Well, the first glaring thing is the $17 to $27 billion that we hemorrhage to Ottawa every year. That continues. So there's that. If you want to talk about startup costs, one of the things that was included in that number, by the way, I wrote an essay on this. There's a visual thing at the back there, I think. Is there any more? The other side of the ledger thing? The full sheet of paper.
It's in the entry.
Okay, so they are there. So I call it, show me both sides of the invoice. If you're going to talk about the cost, talk about what we get as well. And so I broke that down as best I can. Feel free to critique it. But part of that was our share of the national debt. Does anybody in this room think that our national debt is going to be decreased next year? How about the next year after that? How about the next year? If Alberta takes its share of the national debt as whatever Canada says is ours, which is a lot more than what I believe it is, and we decide to do it later, are we going to pay more or less? We'll pay more, right? If the debt increases year after year, it makes sense to withdraw early so that we stop incurring that debt, right? So the concept that the Premier says that, what does she say here? Transitional costs, 400 billion. New annual costs, 25 to 50 billion. Debt to absorb, 75 to 183 billion. Let's call it 183 billion. Sold. Where do I sign?
Exactly.
Because next year, it's not going to be 182. It's going to be 200 billion. And then 220 billion, right? So this one here, this trifold called Show Me the Other Half of the Bill, has a lot of that information. And like I say, I did the best I can, and feel free to critique it. But it's an example of how our politicians like to manipulate us with fear. Danielle is extremely smart. She is a very intelligent person. She knows these things. And yet she tossed around that $400 billion number without having anything to back it up, knowing that it would fuel the fire of anti-sovereignty by getting people to fear this big number. But I'll tell you something. Even if the number was 400 billion, do you know what I would say? Where do I sign?
The other thing is that the other part of your question, well, what is it going to cost us to stay? It's going to cost us a heck of a lot more to stay because, as Chris said, every year. What's that?
I said, they'll pick at us.
Well, it's not just that. It's not just the increase in what we send to them every year. Remember, I mentioned the possibility of something called a windfall tax. Canada's in trouble. They need money. And the only place that's generating money in Canada right now primarily is Alberta, followed by Saskatchewan. So what will happen? The big thing about the National Energy Program in 1982 or whatever the heck it was a way, not just a way of preventing Alberta from becoming the fiscal capital of Canada. It was a way to raise money for central Canada. It cost an awful lot of jobs and family strife and money for Albertans, but it benefited central Canada. They'll do the same thing this time when they're in trouble. So what's it going to cost us to stay? Just give your head a shake. I mean, it's not. It's a good question. I don't know the answer, but what I do know is it's going to cost us a heck of a lot more to stay than it will cost us to leave, even if we accepted that $400 billion number.
Which is way out.
Which is way out to lunch because most of that stuff we already pay for through our taxes.
So with all your meetings and everything, are you getting a lot of younger people in?
The question is, with all our meetings, are we getting a lot of younger people? Well, I mean, there's a lot of young people. You are all young, are you not?
That's my last name.
The answer is no. No. Young people are out on jet skis. They're out quadding. They're out camping. But I can tell you what I witnessed between January and May was young people showing up when it counted. There was a petition process in Alberta to compel the government to give us a referendum on Alberta independence. And as I traveled around Alberta, there were young people filling those lines, entire families. So while they don't come to these boring old people meetings, apologies, they do have a vested interest in what's going on. They know that they can't afford homes. They know that it costs too much for insurance, too much for gas, too much for groceries, all those things, taxes. They feel it, they get it, and they show up when it counts. So that's one of our jobs when we're here is we learn as much as we can, and we take it back and we have the conversations with the younger generation so that they know these things and they know how they can make a difference.
And just to add to, hello.
It's working, it's fine.
Just to add to this, there's an awful, it's my first time north. I'm loving your country, by the way. And I noticed the number of camps out here, not summer camps where we take your tent, but working camps is amazing. There's so many people there. Have you in your local organizations figured out a plan to get their votes? Have we educated them first? And then when it comes vote time, do we have a plan? Like, they won't let you on in those campgrounds, but that sounds like campgrounds, but you know what I mean, camp areas. But we need to get the vote from them. Have we got a plan to do that out in the, like, you're so spread out, you literally are going to have to help them get their votes in. At least that's what I think. Chris?
It's not as bad as it used to be.
Well,
No, at least you got non-gravel roads.
I have some. My wife does research like crazy. Every once in a while, I stumble. I'm like a squirrel finding a walnut once in a while. I found information that said that the strongest support for independence for Alberta comes from the highest 1% of our wage earners. People who are doing well recognize what's going on. They recognize the financial impact on their lives because they're comfortable enough that they're able to sit down and analyze it, and they are for independence. We used to think that the only people who were for independence were people like my wife and I, or my wife and me, I should say, if I want to be correct, who are on pensions and worried about what will happen when we become independent. It's not true. Those people are the ones who are most in favor for it. And the ones following it up are young people because they are in a situation where they can't afford a house. They need both of them working, and they can't keep up even with two of them working. And they go downtown to buy a steak for having a barbecue in the backyard, and the darn steak is $35 or more for one. Depending on how good a steak it is. If you want a really good one, you spend a lot more. Anyway, that's just my humble opinion. We have any more questions? I've got one there and one here. I'll take Don, right? Dan. Yeah, I knew it was right.
Thank you. Yes, I can't remember which. I think it was Michael Wagner or whatever. But there's like he's entertaining the three possibilities of separations. Where you have one where Canada's agreeable and everything goes hunky dory, which is not going to happen, and then we have where they good intention, but we get national recognition or international recognition, and then there's the other possibility where Canada fights us and we don't get international recognition. And I don't know, I'm just curious what your thoughts are on like how hard is Canada going to fight us? Would they cut off their nose to spite the face? And what about the rest of the world? If we didn't get international recognition, how hard would it be?
Well, without international recognition, it would be awfully difficult, for sure, right? If other sovereign nations aren't recognizing your sovereignty, they won't talk with you. I don't think that would be the case because there's other nations that have already indicated that they would support Albertans' right to self-determination. As for those other things, how hard would Canada fight? I think we have to look to history to answer that question. Historically, has Canada respected or not respected democracy worldwide? They've respected it. As a matter of fact, very recently, our Prime Minister, he said that Canada supports Palestinian self-determination and sovereignty. Not so long ago, Canada was among the first or second sovereign nation to recognize Kosovo as a sovereign independent nation, even though the conditions around their secession from their parent country were very controversial. So my question would be, if Canada respects democracy and the will of the people for self-determination, why would they only respect people's will for self-determination outside of our borders and not the people inside of our borders that contributed so massively to the confederation that we have now? Why would they abandon the history that we have together, which is mostly a good history specifically for Ottawa, while supporting other people's right to self-determination? So I don't believe that Canada would throw this big hissy fit and not let anybody trade. I believe that at the end of the day, when the dust settles, democracy and the will of the people will be respected, as is respected in the international community. And I think that it would be a short, chaotic period before we got to being good neighbors again.
You had a question, didn't you?
No, it's up here.
Oh, what's up here? Talk into the mic.
Yeah, I was going to just say that I was glad to see the prayer, and I think that's a good thing, because if we don't have godly values, if we don't live like that, just man, we're going to end up in the same mess that we are right now, which we're not happy with. One thing in the Bible, it says, if my people who are called by my name, which would be the Christians, if they'll humble themselves, pray, seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, I will hear from heaven, I will forgive their sins and restore their land. That's a good thing to think about, you know. because it's a godless nation right now. They're sticking their finger in God's eyes, and that's not a good thing. And another thing, I listened to a podcast. What's his name? Bruce Party. He was really good today, I heard, and he said that question that Danielle has, that's bad. He said that gives the forever people 2 chances and us only 1. He said if we, how did he say that? If we vote yes, then the forever people get another chance later on, and or is that, I can't remember how he said that, but anyway.
Through the referendum.
Yeah, it made a lot of sense, and he really said that we need to get a leader, not like, and it's good that there's lots of different areas, different people working on it, but he said we do need a leader to, somebody to kind of head this thing. Anyways, that's where that's all at.
I heard that a while ago, a month or so ago, and you're right. He's very smart, and this is his area of studies, so he has a lot of experience in that as a lawyer. What he said is this: if we vote yes, right, we want a referendum, they have 2 chances to vote no. They can vote no on this one, but if we say yes, we want a referendum, and we get enough votes, they have a second chance to vote no. We have 1 chance, and it's this one. We must get enough yeses.
If that's your opinion.
Good comment.
If that's what you want, right? What does Quebec have that Alberta doesn't have? Don't say poutine, because we have good poutine at the Whistle Stop Cafe in Alberta. They have a political vehicle that their whole mandate is sovereignty. That's all they do. And Alberta has been unable for some reason to do that. Do you know why Alberta has been unable to have a political party that brings the concept of sovereignty into the legislature? Because Albertans haven't had the courage to do it. Because Albertans have been gaslit into believing that their fear of the NDP is greater than their desire for autonomy. And this is why I talk about the courage to change. The courage to change who our UCP has running an election. Are we going to allow independence-minded candidates to get disqualified? The courage to change who we vote for in a particular CA. Like maybe there's a federalist UCP candidate running and there's a independence-minded independent. Are we going to have the courage to vote for what aligns with our values? Or are we going to capitulate to fear like we have for the last, forever, right? Alberta had this weird situation where there was 44 years of, quote, conservative, end quote, government. And Albertans really didn't think they had to do much because we're a conservative province, we always will be, and we don't need to do the work. Well, how did that work out? And then the first time there's a threat of having to do the work to continue the conservative movement that aligned with our values, we capitulated to fear, united with another group, watered it down, and here we are today. So we have some tough decisions to make, and we have a lot of work to do, but I believe that we were born for such a time as this, and we can do that work.
I'd like to make one comment about that, and it's going to be a short one. You made a comment about requiring a leader. The Wild Rose Party had a leader, Danielle Smith. She's a smart lady. She's very competent. She's also very much a political animal. What happened when she did what she did with some of her compatriots and crossed the floor basically spelt the death knell for the Wild Rose Party, which had a really good possibility of being the government in the next election. So when you say you want a leader, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but you have lots of leaders. You have 3 on this stage. There's how many people are speaking in this outfit and others throughout the province?
28.
28 people. There are leaders. What you don't have is a savior, other than the one that you attend church for on Sundays, but he's not going to get involved in our political process. So what it boils down to really is that it's up to you. We're doing what we can. We come here and we speak with you, we answer questions, we tell you our opinions, ask you yours. And hand out pamphlets. There's the peanut gallery. But anybody here remember Howdy Doody besides us old guys? Anyway, so what we have is we have us and we have you. We are titular leaders. In other words, we lead conversations and try to get information out and receive information so that our opinions and your opinions are heard and perhaps developed. But you guys are the leaders. It's you.
So what are you going to do to get the votes?
So it's up to you. It's up to you. You need to convince people of the. Well, we don't need. We're not talking votes here. We're talking information. People need to understand what a sovereign Alberta needs to be, whether it's within Canada or without. And we need leaders for that. We're part of it. So are you. Get out there and lead. You're courageous. You're not afraid. You know it can be difficult and maybe even a little bit uncomfortable, but you're going to do it anyway. I know you are. I look at you. I can tell you're going to do it. You're here.
Is there any way that we could get Danielle to change that question? Or maybe even have, I don't know, but she just needs to have one question, yes or no. That's it. The rest will all fall into place.
Short answer is no.
Why not?
The question is, will we be able to get Danielle to change that question? If she was going to do anything else, she would have done it by now. And the reason is because that was an impossible scenario for her. And she's done what she believes is the most politically viable solution. I do not believe that there is a snowflake's chance in a hot summer day in Alberta.
Then she should quit campaigning on our dollar.
Well, and this is
she's got one vote. That's what she should do.
this is the issue I have. Yeah, so the comment is, if she's not going to change that question, she should stop campaigning against us. She has one voice, or Danielle Smith. And actually every single MLA and every MP and mayors and these people. They should stop using our tax dollars to campaign against us. They should remain neutral. I agree 100%, but they won't. Do you know why? Because they don't have to. There is no rule saying they don't have to. They can do this. And this comes down to, nobody ever said this was going to be easy. As a matter of fact, we literally said everybody that is benefiting from the status quo is going to be against us. And they're going to pull out all the stops. They're going to spend all the money. Do you think that any of the status quo people care if they get an infraction from Elections Alberta? They don't care. They'll just get their $500 million a year federally funded charity to cut them a check. Right? This is where we're at. We are, even just to have this conversation is not easy. It requires people who just don't really have the money to spend to put $20 in a bucket. That's what it takes, and that's what we're doing. So, no, I don't think we're going to get her to change the question, but my opinion on those types of things is it is important to consider those things, but it's more important to ask, what are we going to do? We can't change what other people do. We can't change what other people say. What are we going to do that makes us effective at bringing the conversation around these things? Because we can control what we do, but we can't control what they do.
Even if we get
November's coming up. The AGM will
Yeah.
go and
Yeah, November is coming up, and November is after October, right? So, and then you know what you're going to see in November? It'll be, well, we can't change anything now because we need to prepare for the next election because you all need to be so scared of the NDP. And even beside that, I don't believe that that replacing her would be appropriate anyway. I really don't. I mean, what's that going to do between November and election time? It's not going to get us any closer. It's going to, as a matter of fact, this whole campaign that I'm seeing to remove her is wasting, in my opinion, you might not share it, is wasting time, resources, and money that we could be using to facilitate the conversation around something much more important, which is the question of Alberta sovereignty. If all of that time, resource, and money was put into facilitating the conversation, and Alberta spoke very, very loudly one way or the other, and of course, people in this room prefer one way, then that changes the way our government has to act. You see what I'm saying? It's less important that we worry about what those who are opposed to us are doing, and it's more important that we have the conversation and bring get more people to make a decision as to what the best course for Alberta is. And then those people, you know, their will is expressed through a referendum question, and the government has to pay attention.
We have a question over here.
Yeah, well, it's more, okay, it's to inform people on some of the stuff that's going on. When it comes to, you guys all spoke about GDP and debt, you know, that we're in right now. Well, some of that is devised, okay? And what I mean by that, right now, what it costs us to service the debt, that money, what it costs us, is included in the government's GDP calculations. So as of last year, 12.7% of the GDP calculation is servicing the debt. So now if you look back at when Justin Trudeau first got in and where the debt, national debt was versus where it is today, the GDP would actually be 7 points lower than it is right now, just on the national debt by them printing money. Okay, so it's in their best interest right now to make their numbers look good, okay, on the GDP, is to print money. Okay, every time they print money, it costs all of us here. So now, for them to change that, it's not advantageous to them to change it. So that's why government having more and more debt increases the GDP the way they figure it out. So how do we win on that? The only way to change that is to change the system.
I agree that we need to change the system. Let me tell you something else about GDP that I just learned recently. Our gross domestic product is all of the economic activity of the country. Politicians' wages is GDP. Bureaucrats' wages is GDP. All of the parasitic draw on your paycheck is GDP. Any money that is given to people seeking asylum in our country is GDP. So if 1,000 people are given asylum in Canada and they each get $1,000, how much money is that? It's $1 million. And I can tell you it's a lot more than 1,000 and 1,000. All of that money is calculated into GDP. So GDP means very, very little. What is important to understand is that the new value creation that you folks make by extracting, developing resources, building things and selling them, exchanging your time, minutes and hours and years of your life to make a product to sell to other people, that is real economic activity. But they include all of the parasitic draw on it. So when Mark Carney stands up there and says, we have our GDP growth is this, you look back and you see, okay, well, we hired 100,000 bureaucrats. We brought in 100,000 people and gave them $8,000 or whatever a year. Like that money is all included. So it's a smoke and mirrors game, and it's manipulation on a massive scale. So yes, we need to change the system. Sorry, I have a way of making the room go silent.
Actually, Chris, don't worry. I can see by looking at their faces that they're not stunned, they're in awe.
Memory short and only.
Are there any more questions? Any more comments?
What are we going to do to get to 1,000 groups of 1,000?
Yeah.
Yes. How do we build that community? On that thought.
By having discussions like this and encouraging people to become leaders, to become ambassadors for the conversation, to becoming disciples to share their opinion. That's how we do it. I'll give you a little history lesson. Around 2,000 years ago, there was a group of 12 people. And those 12 people brought a message out into the world, sharing it on an individual basis. And within 100 years, it was over the entire world, and it's prevailed to this day. Well, those are the 12 disciples, of course. Right? That model of discipleship isn't limited to just spreading your faith. It's sharing your opinions. That's how the world gets changed. How many people in this room have been involved in a multi-level market? You tell someone, they tell someone. It's a very effective method because it's not just me sitting up here with a microphone talking to people who don't really know me very well and I don't really know them very well. It's individuals with opinions talking to people who already have a trusting relationship with them. That's how we do that. We become ambassadors for what we believe in. We wear our opinion proudly after we buy it from the beautiful Jessica back there for way too much money. We have the conversations with our peers and our family that need to be had, and we encourage them to do the same. So tonight I think there's like 30 people or something here, or there was 30 people. I made some leave, I guess. Next time, maybe there will be 60 because each of you brings someone with you. And that's how we get 1,000 groups of 1,000 people.
One at a time.
Yeah. Or maybe we drive a rolling billboard all over Alberta and it makes people say, hey, what is it that we have to talk about? Hey, I saw this thing driving down the highway and it said, Let's Talk Alberta. What is that all about? Oh, well, haven't you heard? Let's Talk Alberta is going around Alberta and they're having conversations with Albertans about Alberta's future because we have important questions that we're going to be asked. How great is that? Let's go talk about it. That's how we do it. Pick a truck.
Well, everybody here has a kitchen table. You all have neighbors.
Take pamphlets.
You can have pamphlets on your kitchen table.
What's coming up that you're so excited about?
I just dropped another hint.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know he was excited.
I'm working on the greatest rolling billboard for conversations about Alberta's future that we've ever seen. So I really hope we can raise enough support to do it. It's going to be absolutely epic.
Why?
And are you bringing
Why is
all
it
the
epic?
truckers?
That's all I'm saying.
Oh, gee.
Where's your meeting at tomorrow in Valley? In Valley.
Advertise it. I don't have
I
my
got a
phone.
friend down there.
So the question was, where is our meeting tomorrow in Valley View? The answer is at letstalkalberta.com. If you scroll down, you'll see all of the posters for our upcoming events. Please share those with your friends. Right-click on it, select download image, send a text message to your friends in the area and send them the poster. Encourage them to go, especially if they disagree with my opinion that Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable. I said this before, and I know I'm going to regret this someday, but there is nothing that I would appreciate more, not to say I would like it, than to sit at a table like this with all of these seats full of people who hate me and hate my opinion, challenging me on it. I'm serious. I want people to come to these Let's Talk Alberta events and politely and respectfully challenge what I'm saying. If they believe that the status quo is better, I want them here to convince me because I also want to make the best decision. And maybe I'm wrong, and if they convince me, maybe my mind will change. But that's how we get to the best outcomes, is by having a discussion.
Like those good questions there today. Too.
You know, it's
Yes, exactly.
the meeting tomorrow is at the Memorial Hall. Yeah, I looked it up for you because it's open 6:30. Speakers at 7. I just save you the trouble of pulling your phones out and finding out for yourself.
And those.
I'm like the government. I look after you.
Don't worry, I'm here to help.
Yeah, don't worry, I'm here to help. I'm from the government.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you. I think he's just being teased.
You'll see it.
It'd be like a sticker for the big flag.
Oh, what is this, question and answer period or what? Jeez. It's about 40 feet wide or 40 feet long by about 10 feet high.
That's big.
And it
Is
has
Lynn
wheels?
gonna pick it up?
Oh my goodness. Yes, it's a sailboat.
Well, the wind's pretty bad down south.
It sure is.
I have a question about the flag. The gray on the bottom with the green.
Alligators?
My wife calls them alligators.
Like, what are they? I have no
What's
idea.
that? I know the wheat and the mountains.
I don't know, maybe if someone could look it up. I think it's I thought it was little islands, but maybe I'm.
I thought it was islands in the stream.
You know, we actually have got some comments. There was one very heated from a gentleman, not very gentleman-like, down in Clare's home, and he has a problem with the St. George's Cross. You know, I don't at all. I like Alberta's flag. I think it's beautiful. I think it represents Alberta very well. And the St. George's Cross, yes, it does have ties to England, but the reason England used it was because St. George was a man who stood up for others to the point where he was beheaded. Like, he actually stood up to the emperor in Rome because the emperor was persecuting Christians, and he said to him, Emperor, you shouldn't do this. This is wrong. And the emperor said, you can take that back or you're going to die. And he said, no, this is wrong what you're doing. And they beheaded him. He was martyred for his faith, not only for his faith, but for standing up for others. So that St. George's Cross, that's what it means to me. Standing up for what you believe in, even in the face of the unthinkable. And I think most Albertans would share that. When the time comes, Albertans, we show up and we do the work and we defend our values and what we believe in. And that's what that means to me. So I don't have a problem with the flag at all.
I also think that when we show up, we're not going to have to worry about losing our heads. I don't think anybody's going to behead us. There might be some nasty things said, but I don't think anybody's going to lop your head off. Yeah, well, that's different.
Well, you know what, John? I didn't think that I was going to see a young man be shot in front of thousands of people either for speaking what he believes in and asking for people to challenge his opinions. But this is the world we live in, right? So I don't know about you folks, but when I saw that, when I watched Charlie Kirk die, that changed something for me, and I was like, you know what? Something that he said, he was asked, what are you going to do? What if someone comes and takes you out? What then? And he says, you know what? If they take me out, 10 more will take my place. And if they take them out, 100 more, and then 1,000 more. And I said, that's exactly it. You don't stop doing what you know is right or advocating for what you know is right out of fear for someone retaliating. You make sure that you build the network and you create the apostles and disciples for what you believe in so that when they take you out, there's other people that would take your place. And do I think that's going to happen to us? Probably not. I think it's going to be things like, lawfare and annoying delays and things like that they do. But none of those things should stop us. But we do need to think about the sacrifices that many people have made just even to facilitate a conversation and not take it for granted that we're able to do that. That's why this Canada flag is up here, by the way. Because I'm grateful to have the blessing of living in a place where I can share my opinions freely without fear of persecution by the government, mostly, and certainly without fear of being executed, even if my opinions are so strong as to say I believe Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable. So, thank God we live in a country like Canada for that.
And I don't want you all, because I've talked to you and I know your capabilities, even somewhat limitedly, are above average. I don't want you to wait for that kind of a disaster to happen before you become the leaders you're meant to be. You all have good minds. You've all got the energy. If we've got it, you've got it. Don't wait for that. Go out, figure out something, some way of helping somewhere. You feel better, and it helps the cause. Yes.
Bit of a statement. I sat up by the Walmart here in town and collected signatures from people.
Joel, I'll bring you the mic so they can hear you.
You come on up here too so they can see.
So I sat for a few days up by the Walmart collecting signatures, and everybody that came to sign, I asked them, why do you want to sign this? And I had a lot of young people. I literally had a group of girls from the high school One of them, it was her 18th birthday. She said, things have to change. So the younger crowd knows things have to change. People with as much gray hair as I have and a lot of the people here, usually the biggest question was, what happens if we separate? What happens to my CPP? What happens to, you guys discussed some of the costs, but could you talk about what happens to our CPP and our pensions and that sort of thing?
Nothing happens to your CPP. Nothing. Canada sends CPP payments all over the world. Canada also sends OAS payments all over the world. The one thing I will add to that is that if you're on the OAS supplement, I think there's a residency requirement. You may lose the supplement if we become independent. But that's not a problem because Alberta will pick up the slack. If we have an Alberta pension plan, you'll get a heck of a lot more out of that than you get out of CPP anyway.
And I say, and actually every speaker on this panel would say, we would advocate for Alberta to not leave anyone behind, which means if something happened and you're on some program right now that sustains you, Alberta has to pick that tab up. There's no room for negotiation on that. We don't leave people behind. And there will be people saying, well, how can you guarantee that, Chris? How are you going to guarantee that? I'm not. It's you folks that are going to do that. It's you folks that get to decide. It's Albertans that get to decide. Right now, as an Albertan, if you don't like how CPP is managed, what do you do about it? Wait a minute, Joanne says nothing. Why can't we elect MPs that go to Ottawa and advocate for change on behalf of Albertans?
You can do that.
This is what I've understood, but a lot of people believe that if Alberta were to become independent, we would be segregated from Canada, and that CPP that they've paid into all their lives would be taken away from them.
Yeah, but that's just not true. This is why the conversation is important, because people believe things like that because men like Tom Lukaszuk have told them. If Alberta becomes independent, you lose your pension, you lose your citizenship, you lose your passport. None of those things are true. If you want more information specifically on these things, go to, did I put it on Let's Talk Alberta? Go to whistlestoptruckstop.ca/blog. I've written a number of blogs that are well researched. There's footnotes and citations and references in there, so you can check it out yourself on these specific questions. What we have now, what we could have, what it might look like, facts versus fiction. Because you're correct. A lot of people believe that. The answer is just what John says. Your CPP is portable. It goes with you if you move to France. Why would it change if you live in Alberta? As for citizenship, there's no mechanism by which a Canadian can lose their citizenship. Justin Trudeau says once a Canadian, always a Canadian, always a Canadian. And Omar Khadr was stripped of his citizenship under the 1942 Act, which said that if we fight against our country or allies on foreign soil, that we'll lose our citizenship. Even then, they gave his citizenship back and $10.5 million. So no, you don't lose your citizenship. And if in some magical world, the federal government decided to pass a law that said you would lose your citizenship, even though that's not constitutional and wouldn't hold up in the Supreme Court, how would they know who chose Alberta independence? It's a private ballot, right? These things are important to talk about as well, and we haven't actually talked about them. The questions haven't come up much in the last few meetings. But if you want more info on that in respect for time, check out my blogs. If you agree with me, please send me an email or something and let me know. If you disagree or you think I'm wrong, again, please send me an email and let me know. But it's a great resource for you for things like that. Same with those trifolds. Those trifolds back there one of them has over there. One of them is all myths or facts and myths about the potentials in Alberta independence. There's other one about the $400 billion claim. There's another one about why I believe that Alberta independence would benefit First Nations people even more. So great resources to have on your coffee table, and you can copy them, hand them out, do whatever you want with them. Just don't change the text, please.
One thing I will mention is that your CPP account is yours. The government has put no money in that account. You and your employer. If you're self-employed, you put double in. But that money doesn't belong to the government, it belongs to you. So there's no way they can legally keep it from you regardless of where you live. So that's just it's hooey. We lived in Mexico for a decade and a half. CPP checks came in every month. So did the OAS, because we're old.
Just so you know, I was asking the question not
I know.
for me, but for anybody who had that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, become a member of the UCP. I did. It's the first time ever in my life. But I had a survey on today. They have questions for you to answer, and then a comment session. Well, the questions they ask are not very intelligent to me, but the comments you can put in, you can put whatever you want. So the comments were long. So pay $10, whatever it is, become a member, then you can talk to Danielle right on your computer. You don't have to.
And she said she reads it too.
She reads it, and for me to go to Calgary to that meeting, it's almost impossible, but that's the way you can get involved too. Pay your membership, and when they do have a survey, you get a chance to say something. I don't know.
Participate in the process. I 100% agree. We'll bring you the. We'll give you the mic so they can hear. It's for the people in internet land.
Is there people up there?
I think there's people. Pixels.
Yeah, it was asked earlier if there's the younger generation, if they're paying attention to any of this. I was out there collecting signatures, and something that was really nice to see is some of the young people that would come up. I had to ask them for when I look at their ID, I had to verify they were 18. You know, I had to verify their age because they looked that young. You know, so yes, there is a lot of young people out there. A lot of them were stopping, asking questions, all kinds of stuff. You know, and I'm still seeing that today. Young people asking. We had a information booth here a couple weeks ago in one of the fairs, and again, a whole bunch of young people were coming and asking questions. So yes, the young people are out there. It's just most of the time they got to go to work in the morning. They got to, you know what I mean? So they're just not here because they're just busy with their life. I don't think it's anything more than that. I do believe the young generation are just as involved as the rest of us when it comes to opinions. It's just that they're not physically here, that's all.
Yeah, that's correct.
Go
ahead, Joe.
Sorry. I would like to say something to that. I agree with that comment. We had to phone a lot of people when we were working with APP. And I agree that is a solid statement of truth. But I want to tell you just from the teacher perspective. When my granddaughter was in grade 11, I asked her how much she knew about conservatism. Now, she's 23 right now, so you got to take off 5 years. Abigail. You got to take off 5 years. So 5 years ago, when I looked at her grade 11, no, that'd be 6 years then, grade 11 textbook, that word did not appear in the textbook. I was appalled. This is a social studies. And my granddaughter, who was a solid average, like really solid, she had no idea what it meant. And yet we're finding that our youth are very, very strong in the knowledge of and support of conservative policy. They're not getting it from the schools. So this is a kudos to all the parents out there who have made the effort to have those dinner conversations with their children, and in our case, our grandchildren. They do know what's going on. Not all of them, but a far greater average than I would have predicted from what they're getting in the schools. They literally only know socialism. So yeah, they're doing really well.
There is a comment on YouTube, and someone is claiming that they only listen to these so they can hear the lies and mistruths. Which ones? If there's anything specific that you think is a lie or untrue, I'd like to hear about it. If you can't give any examples of what you believe is untrue, then what are you doing here?
I'm just looking at something on the internet right now. It says CBC News, our source for verified factual information in Canada. They reported that a new Calgary Chamber of Commerce report is out saying Alberta separation could prompt a potential $62 billion economic hit. Business exodus from Calgary. Alberta's lost over how many $100 billion? Canada has lost $1 trillion. Alberta's lost billions and billions of dollars over the last decade.
150 billion.
In the exodus of business. And what this article is trying to tell you, that a province or a new country that had lower taxes, less regulatory hurdles, and fewer teachers. I hate teachers, except for this one. I love her. They're trying to convince us that open to business environment would result in a $62 billion exodus. Not going to happen. Business will flock to Alberta.
Just for fun, folks, for those of you watching at home as well, dig into who is in the Calgary Chamber of Commerce and who's doing these news releases. It'll be interesting.
Are we good?
Well, I think that's it, which is perfect timing, 9:45, and I'm going to turn into a pumpkin right away. So unless there's anything else pressing, I guess we can wrap it up.
What is your guys' opinion on the treason charges against Smith?
What is our opinion on the treason charge treason accusation? The accusation of treason against Smith, it's completely ridiculous, it's ludicrous, it's irresponsible, it's immature, and it's not conducive to a proper discussion on anything.
Not only that, it's not in the law.
It's not in the law, not at all, no. You know, I hear this all the time, oh, you're violating the treaties, from people that are talking about interfering with infrastructure projects, blocking roads, blocking bills, using the duty to consult to block legislation, railways, all these things. If anyone's violating the treaties, it would be those people. Yeah. Like, you have a nation, we have a nation, run your nation, we'll run our nation, period.
That's what I would think.
A little harsh, but it's the truth. Anyway, on that note, whistlestoptruckstop.ca/blog, why treaties were meant to free people. That's a great one. Yep. That's all my thoughts on this subject. So anyway, I'll just say thank you to all the volunteers very much for helping out with this. Thank you folks for coming. Thank you all for watching from home and continuing to watch from home almost every day and engage in the conversation. I really do believe that if we facilitate the conversation and we have it openly and honestly, we're going to get to the best conclusion. We'll have the best outcome for Alberta, which will be the best outcome eventually for Canada. And whatever way it goes, I'm happy to be a part of it. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you for all your time and effort that you were putting in.
My pleasure.
If the metric that we measure our success with is the quality of the community that we bring together, we win.
Yeah, you got it.
100%.
Well said.
I agree.
You guys put a lot into it.
No, it's still live.
I don't have one. I'm going to take one of these.
Yeah, I know.